Welcome to EI Cafe with Azim, in which he reflects on key aspects of life and business through the lens of emotional intelligence. You will learn how emotional intelligence can be used for your success in both personal and professional lives. The podcasts cover topics on leadership, collaboration, culture, building a positive mindset, and even raising kids. You will hear key life lessons and tips from the most prominent personalities, business leaders, entrepreneurs, EI practitioners, and executive coaches from around the world. So sit back, relax with a cup of coffee as we get into today's show, EI Cafe with Azim.
Uncertainty can significantly impact team performance by creating stress, reducing morale, and impairing decision making. When team members are unsure about the future events, their focus and productivity can decline. This often leads to a decrease in collaboration, increased conflicts, and overall drop in efficiency and output. Greetings to you from Colombo, Sri Lanka. This is EI Cafe with Azim, Season 11, and I'm your host, Azim Sahir, a human capital specialist, a Lego Series Play Facilitator, ICF certified PCC level coach, an emotional intelligence and emotional culture tech practitioner. Of course, I'm one of the lead facilitators at Luminary Learning Solution. This weekly show helps you to explore the impact of emotional intelligence on our lives through engaging conversation with industry leaders, innovators, executive coaches, and thought leaders. We aim to inspire and empower you. Team coaching provides a structural approach to navigate through uncertainty by fostering open communication, promoting resilience, and encouraging collaborative problem solving. Coaching helps teams adapt and remain productive. Effective team coaching also focus on building trust, clarity, enabling teams to handle ambiguity with confidence and maintain high performance level. So, to have this conversation, one of my I said to this guest, you're on my one of my bucket list. So here I am. I'm just getting her on my podcast. Joining us today, the guest, Dr.Haesun Moon. She's based in Toronto, is a communication scientist, and of course, an adult educator and executive director at the Canadian Centre for Brief Coaching. She developed the Dialogic orientation quadrant, so-called DOQ, and teaches at the University of Toronto. She's an acclaimed author. A to Z is one of my favorite books. I am on the read at the moment. International speaker. She serves as a faculty at the Institute of Coaching, Harvard Medical School affiliate, where she currently teaching on the topic of efficacy of coaching. Ladies and gentlemen, let me welcome Dr. Haesun Moon. Haesun, welcome to the cafe.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me to the cafe, Azim. This is exciting.
Right. So, Haesun, thank you very much for giving this opportunity. And it is a privilege and honor to have you on the podcast as well. This season, I'm more focused on connectivity of human being and conversations and technique like coaching to really explore what are the ways we can really focus on. On that note, like if you really see the introduction, if you really observe, I talked a lot about team coaching. I think coaching, yes, one-on-one, we have been really focusing on. I think team coaching is something really also emerging in this current context. I always believe uncertainty is the new certainty. So on that note, I want to ask you and start off the conversation with this particular question. In your perspective, how does uncertainty typically impact team dynamics? And the performance within the organization. What would be your take to start off?
That's so interesting because, Azim, when you say uncertainty, when you are uncertain about something, what do people do? What do people do normally when things are uncertain, right? And often we're driven by maybe that fear, maybe something that comes with that. I'm not sure what's happening. Then what do people do? What are the first things that often we do is we sometimes shut down. And what we do is we may complain, but also what we do is we may shut down. And that also shows up actually as lack of talking, lack of communication. So often it starts with uncertainty and people are nervous and anxious and we don't know what's happening. Yes, we might be talking to a few people, but then the communication actually gets segmented. And I feel that the first sign that the uncertainty is impacting a team or organization is that we stop conversations. So then how do we actually then have more conversation, more uncertain it gets? Can we actually have more conversations and not only more, but can we have them better? So that's my take on it. How do we create or curate the space for more conversations and have them better?
So what I'm hearing you is the key focus should be connectivity and the conversation the moment uncertainty comes in. Now, the challenge, I think, for many of us, including myself, when uncertainty comes in, Hazen, do we have that mindset to go and reach out for people? Or rather, we just try to figure it out. How do I get out of it? How do I get out of it? Because that trigger does not appear. How do we really reconnect, refocus ourselves into this?
You know, I think we do actually both of them. We sort of withdraw from perceived danger and we congregate with people who we think is safe to be with. And at the same time, what do we talk about? Do we talk about how do we get out of it? I think we do, because when we actually perceive danger, we act in the way that is prioritizing our safety. So then I think we're actively seeking the way out. But what becomes challenging is that conversation actually anchored in reality? Or are we just wrapped around in this idea of fear and there's dread and there's, my goodness, what's going to happen? And do we actually have that level-headedness if we are not having conversations? Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think that makes a lot of sense in terms of connecting and refocusing and recalibrating ourselves. So in that context, in an organizational setup, like teams are so vital to, we always talk about high performing teams and et cetera, but when an answer, because those are the talk of the town, right? So when uncertainty comes, we don't realize how to really navigate this particular element, take through this team through this uncertainty. And I often see coaching as comes and evolves and emerge as an amazing tool or a platform for leaders to really use it. On that note, how can this team coaching technique find most effective helping teams to navigate through this period of uncertainty? What's your thought?
Yeah. I'm not sure about the culture that you're coming from. Now, the culture that I'm from, I live in, by culture, I'm Korean. I grew up in Canada, but I see that in Korean culture. Broadly in Asian culture, I would say that it's highly community-based. Right. So it's connecting and there's people. We don't even say I so much. We always say we. So it's the we. And when you look at the trend in how coaching developed as well, there's a correlation actually between the coaching booming and also breakdown of families. So often, sometimes we talk about how this coaching field or therapy even is booming because of the lack of that trusted advisor that you can speak to. Because elders of our communities actually serve that role as a mentor, as that coach. And then now we don't have that anymore. And then now it becomes a purchased service. So I often think about this team. team coaching or coaching, one-on-one coaching, the reason why it's booming, quite sadly, I think it's because communication is breaking down at workplaces. So we are bringing in somebody that we can pay to talk to or talk with. So that's one way of looking at it. And what do we do in team coaching is pretty much we're gathering people together and getting them, facilitating the conversation that they wish that they had. And conversations that they always wished that they had and they had better. And now we're facilitating that. For example, team coaching is about, so what would you like to see that that's different, and what do you appreciate about each other? Why do we have to have a team coach to facilitate that if the team knows how to have those conversations already? Right. So I find team coaching as such a powerful way to open up a pattern of how people can speak differently to each other. And I actually do, I actually prefer team coaching over one-on-one coaching because you can actually set the shared language right there. And you don't have to now go back and implement something, but teams are already having the conversation that they wished they had. And that's the beauty of it, right? So that's how I see team coaching.
I'm curious to ask that. Wish they had. Now, why wish they had? What would be the stopping area? What is like really is you said the word lack in the beginning of this particular whole question. Now, what is lacking and why does wish comes in to have this conversation?
So, Azim, let me ask you, what are some things that you wish you could do, but you don't know how to do? I'll give you an example. I don't know how to drive the manual transmission cars. I wish I know, because then it's going to open possibilities. I go to like Europe, I want to rent a car and drive around, but they didn't have a lot of automatic transmission. So I wish I knew how to do that. And what's lacking is my skill. So when you think about it, sure, there are many wishes, but a lot of times it's not that we're lacking the wish. We would love to have great connections and meaningful, fulfilling relationships at work, but do we know how to do that? And do we actually know what will build? So that's why I do communication science, because it's skill-based as well. And when we say we're listening, what are we listening for? That's a skill right there. When somebody's telling you, oh, my day was horrible yesterday, what are you listening for? And that's a skill that we're talking about, especially in coaching, isn't it?
Right.
So that's
absolutely.
what I mean.
Absolutely. And you just was right spot on for my next question, Haesun. Your favorite wonderful tool you have given to this particular, community, DOQ. Right. I've been for your information, I've tested your tool with one of my workshops. It was like
yes.
Yeah, it has been like it's a wow factor. It's an aha moment. With your permission, I don't know. I've been trying to really see how can I tweak and tweaks, being more in terms of EI component and listening. Now, conversation, it's coaches, it's about listening. And you said EOQ is a listening tool for coaches.
Yes, it
Now,
is.
I would like to really get into that particular part of it. Can you give some insight how this whole DOQ can be a great listening tool, not only for the coaches, I think as a human being, like a manager, a father, a mother, I think it can be used in any platform, even though we just say in a corporate context. So
that is very
take
true.
us through. Yes.
And it's a simple, it's seemingly very simple, but I'm still learning how to use it. So it's a simple tool, 2x2, like it's horizontal line, vertical line intersecting. And for those of you who don't know, who are listening in, it's a horizontal line is as you listen to somebody's narrative, they tell you that something happened in the past and something that might happen in the future. So horizontal line is a timeline from left to right, if you can and visualize it. Left to right is past to future. And then vertical line is, if you can visualize, intersecting vertical line on top is when people tell you something that they want. Here's what I want. And on the bottom of that vertical line is, here's something that I don't want, or I want less of it. So it's not necessarily positive, happy thoughts on the top, or negative and sad thoughts. We're not talking about judging or valuing those emotions like that. We're talking about simply sticking to the client's language or our kids' language, our parents' language, who might say, I want this. I don't want this. So it's a preference line. It's a intersecting vertical line. And when you put it together, you have 4 areas. Well, when you use it as a research tool, there are 8 areas, but for a simple listening tool, we have 4 areas. One is when people tell you something that what they would love to see happen in the future, we call it preferred future, which is upper right, I guess. Upper right corner is quadrant 1. And upper left is quadrant 2, where people are now thinking about something that happened. Maybe it's interaction, experiences, feelings, emotions that they really cherished and enjoyed in the past. We call it resourceful past. And it could be people who helped you out or situation that worked out and things like that from your past that we often forget because we're busy complaining. We're busy, getting worried about something, and we forget about our resourceful past. We all have it. How did you manage to show up to this, for example, is a resourceful past. That is small but not insignificant, right? And then the bottom quadrants are the lower left is where people tell you something that happened in their past that, oh, I wish that didn't happen. I didn't like it. And it's simply called trouble past. It could be maybe something that you said, did, you should have done something differently. Regrets live there. And then we often talk about it. And then the last one is the lower right corner of the quadrant actually is some things that we are very good at as human species because we have to survive. When you talk about uncertainty, absolutely, we live there. That uncertainty, what does that do? We fear it, we dread it, and we're like, it really makes us nervous and anxious because we don't know. And our brains don't like it. It's like, I don't know what's happening. We're trying to make sense of it. That's why we make sense of it by probably perceiving a certain way, make up stories. Or maybe the monster is out there. I remember doing my thesis, and one of my supervisor, Peter, said, I think you are afraid of this paper tiger out there. It's not even real, but you made it up and you're afraid of this paper tiger. And that's quadrant 4 called dreaded future. And I use it as a listening map when I listen to people. And when your kid comes back from school and they're like, oh, how was your school, honey? And they tell you the story and see if you can hear what they tell you. As a pattern, we talk about quadrant 3 and for the bottom quadrants, 3 or more times more likely, 3 times more likely to dwell in it, right? And our job is, do you want to stay there? Or what would you like to do with your narratives that you're telling yourself? So it becomes a very useful listening map, especially if you use it with your clients. I usually teach all my clients, here's a tool I use, and they love it.
Brilliant. Now, if we bring this particular context into a team coaching environment, how I do understand it's about right one-on-one. Yes, I can listen. Okay, I hear what Haesun saying. She's giving certain context on the troubled few past, and she's giving on the dreadful future. But in a team environment, how do you think this can be? Because as a coach, I need to listen to several people.
Yeah, especially what if they don't agree?
Exactly.
Especially when you ask things like, so how do you think you are doing on a scale of 1 to 10? And somebody says, we are at 10. And somebody's like, are you kidding me? We're at 1. How do you facilitate that conversation?
Exactly. How do you do that?
Right. And I learned how to use it for team coaching because I was asked actually on the spot to do a team coaching demo when I was in Budapest. And it was during kind of conference, and they asked me, hey, can you actually do a quick team coaching demo? I'm like, what? I'm about to go to a bathhouse, but sure. So then let's do this. And how I used it is I drew this areas on the floor. So we had a masking or carpet. So we had 4 carpets. So we sectioned off 4 different areas for each quadrant. And then we sat around in a circle, and I said, so I started by saying, what would be useful for me to know about you? And about 12 people in a circle, they started to tell me something that they think is useful for me to know about the team. Obviously, it was mostly in quadrant 3 and 4. Some of them are like, yeah, but we really do care about each other. So we had some of those like brilliant things that people say. But now it's often, it's a habit of somehow we are taught to ignore the negative narratives. And I think it's so dangerous when you do that.
Yeah.
I mean, people are telling their story and do not neglect any of that, right? So how do we honor and acknowledge their story? It doesn't matter in what quadrant. But I started hearing their story. It took, 5 minutes for them to share something that they think is important for me to know. And I quickly actually taught them, here's the quadrant that I'm going to work with. And I told them, here's what I heard so far. And I heard that you said this, and they started to map immediately and they know how to use it. And I said, hey, where would you like, let's travel together as a team as we, talk together. Where would you like to be? Azim, I thought they're going to all pick quadrant 1, right? I'm like, of course you're going to pick quadrant 1.
You have to go to the
And it
preferred
was,
future, right?
yeah, right. I was like, come on, people, let's go to, I mean, who wouldn't choose that, I thought. So I invited them to like, where would you like to begin? And actually, I remember this one person put up her hand and she's like, we really need to talk about the quadrant 4.
Wow.
And I said, okay. So I thought she misunderstood the quadrant. So I said, oh, quadrant 4, the dreaded future. And she's like, yeah, I know. I'm like, oh no.
Oh my God.
Oh no. And then another person said, oh, come on, we did it enough. And the whole team dynamics, you see it. Oh no, so negative again. So we see it right away. And somebody says, no, but then if we don't talk about what went wrong, how are we going to learn from our mistakes? We need to start from quadrant 3. So the team of 12 was divided to 4 different quadrants. Somebody's like, that's so negative. Let's go to quadrant 1. And they're like disagreeing. So then I invited them to, let's start where you want to start. So all of you stand up and move to that quadrant because we have carpets, right?
Okay.
They all moved to the quadrant and they said, what do we do now? I said, well, here's what you're going to do. And I gave them prompts. In each quadrant, I gave them prompts so that they can ask each other. Because question actually, how it functions is it gives a specific scope of answers to the answerer. So how do we provide prompts that is specifically framing the possible scope of answers? So they started to ask each other that question, and they had one job. One job is listen to what they seem to care about. Okay. And it was really beautiful, especially because it was all done in Hungarian. I had no idea what they're talking about. Now, how do you work with this? As a facilitator, you have no idea what they're talking about. And we did, and then, I invited them to switch to the next one. And then we spent about 20 minutes like that. And that was my team coaching demo. I invited them back to sit down together. And I think to this, I would say that was one of my not only favorite, but best team coaching sessions that I've done so far. And I simply asked them, what do you appreciate about this experience? And what did you learn from conversing with one another? And the insights that they got,
Amazing.
I was in tears. They were in tears. Right. Yes. So anyway, that's what I mean by it doesn't matter if they agree or not. It's just start from where they are at, and we are facilitating that conversations so that they are more likely to be having the conversations that they wish they had.
and absolutely, I remember when I was in one of your office hour sessions, I remember, I was asking you, so do we as coaches, do we need to really drive them toward the quadrant 1? And the answer was, do we really want to? Why don't we let them be where they are and find out how they want to get out of it? Isn't that an amazing? I thought that was an amazing one, because we have been talk about positive psychology. Like sometimes there can be huge resource. The past could be an amazing resource, but we never want to touch that because we don't want to get the client into the. And I remember you said a word, acknowledge. acknowledge what they have gone through. I think that's amazing learning. Haesun, we're just coming the latter part of the conversation. I just want to ask. No, I was reading your book. I love the letter C from A to Z. Right.
Oh.
You say, like, if you are curious about what matters to them, you are inviting them on a quest to discover what they care about, what truly matters, and what makes their heart sing. I thought this is an amazing aspect to bring empathy and emotional intelligence into it. I just want to quickly have your understanding. Can we connect this with care and AI or empathy? What's your thought?
So when we think about emotional intelligence as a whole, or when we talk about empathy, now people think that empathy is a feeling thing. But imagine somebody's telling you, "Oh my goodness, I just I wish I can have just a couple days off to have a breather. It's been crazy at work." Okay? Now empathy is not like, "Oh, me too." That's not empathy. Oh yeah, wouldn't that be lovely? Yeah, but I'm not sure. It's none of that is empathy. Empathy actually is, in the line of work that I do, and especially being respectfully empathetic, is preserving the client's language. Because in client's language, or otherwise called logos, they have their logic of how they do their life. Often we think nothing about changing clients' words. Or, when client says it's been so crazy at work, we're like, oh, it's been tough. Well, they didn't say tough. They said crazy. Maybe it's crazy busy, but they love it. We don't know. And how do we stay close to the client's language is the most empathetic thing that we can do and show. And often we actually add things that they didn't say. And we're like, and we ask questions and they don't take it, and we call them resistant. I mean, think about it. Being empathetic is staying really close to their language, their logic of them doing their life. Because who are you anyway? They're the expert of their life, right? For me,
And they own
the
their story,
connection,
right? They own their story.
absolutely. Yeah. And that's the connection point for me. When we say empathy, what does that mean? How much of ourselves do we assert? And is that necessary that we do that? I feel
Absolutely.
very strongly about it, by the way.
Thank you very much for sharing that. And your last question for this particular whole segment. I'm just curious to know, like, what sort of a guidance or advice would you like to give to the coaches or even the leaders who are looking to specialize in helping teams to navigate uncertainty? What do you want to do, takeaways you want to share?
I think leaders create that uncertainty, especially when they are not communicating, and especially when they're going through some major changes, or leaders are the ones who are initiating the changes, and they keep saying, "This is good for you." Yeah, yeah. I mean, who's going to believe that, right? Then how we converse needs to change. Are we communicating in the way? And I talk about, when you speak, do you get the nods from the people? So when you speak, do we have this shared understanding or calibration? Or whenever you talk about, this is a good idea to change, are they rolling their eyes? Like, read the room. So my advice, if I can give one, is really think about what people care about, and genuinely do not use it for your benefit. Do not manipulate it, but think about, what do people care about, and speak to that. Begin there, right? And do not force, this is good idea for you, or, it's not been working. Honor people's past experiences. Listen to what people care about. Start there. It will not go wrong if you do that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And there you go, ladies and gentlemen. That's from Dr. Haesun Moon. Get connected. Just listen and create a space to have that conversation. So, Dr. Haesun Moon, are you ready for my rapid fire round?
Sure.
Right. Let's get started. Right. Question number one. Very short, no need explanation. What made you choose to be in academia?
Why did I choose that?
Yes. Yeah.
I didn't choose that. Academia chose me. I'm
Nice.
actually a
Okay,
pracademic, so I'm a practitioner and academic. So that's what I say about
fantastic.
me.
Okay, if not a practitioner and an academic, what would you choose as a career?
Uh, sculptor or
Oh,
carpenter.
interesting.
Hmm.
Do you do anything for hobby or what?
I do, but I actually do work as a musician at the moment, but I think there's
Oh,
similarities in all of those.
nice, brilliant. I think one of the try to explore coaching and music. Can we collaborate and see? Like,
Oh,
okay,
absolutely.
question number 3. In one word, what is coaching for you?
Curating.
Curating. Fantastic. And the last
Mhm.
one on this particular segment, what would be your navigation tool for uncertainty?
My navigation is not a tool. My navigation uh, through uncertainty and certainty is my faith in God.
Uh-huh. Wow. So thank you, Dr. Haesun Moon. Ladies and gentlemen, that's a wrap up to our discussion on the importance of team coaching in an uncertain time. So I would like to thank Dr. Haesun Moon for her valuable time to being in the cafe and sharing those amazing insights and taking through her fantastic tool. Of course, you can get connected to Dr. Haesun Moon. Please do like her on, connect through LinkedIn. Of course, why
Please
not?
do like me.
People always like you. Yeah, I know that. At the same time, you can get connected to her, log on to her website. There are 3 links I'm going to share on my podcast note. So I'll just share one. You can log on to www.briefcoaching.ca, or you can log on to www.humanlearning.ca as well. Of course, you can access her book Coaching A to Z on www.coaching@az.com, and all the links will be available on the podcast note. So thank you very much, Dr. Haesun Moon, for your valuable time. It has been amazing, and it's been a great pleasure and honor to have you on the show as well.
Thank you so much, Azim.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of EI Cafe with Azim. Hope you enjoyed this conversation with Dr. Haesun Moon on team coaching. You can check out similar topic in episode 92, How Generative Conversation Solve Tension with Janet M. Howe. Episode number 79, The Impact of Emotional Intelligence and Coaching on Leaders' Effectiveness with Dr. Ellen B. Van Houston. Episode number 62, Leadership in Times of Crisis with Monica Hall. I hope these conversations helps you in your professional as well as personal life. Don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share with your friends and connection who can benefit from this conversation. Until next time, stay inspired and keep striving for excellence. This is EI Cafe with Azim, and checking out from the cafe, my name is M. Azim.
Thank you for joining yet another successful episode of EI Cafe with Azim. We appreciate your time and invite you to subscribe to the show so that you don't miss out on the next episode. Write a review and even rate it if you please. You can also follow Azim Sahir on social media. We would also love to hear from you on what topics you'd like us to cover and even who you'd like us to invite to the show. We wish you well until we meet again on another episode of EI Cafe with Azim.